What is up, guys? Welcome to the new ranking of the Arrowverse mid-season finales updated for 2018. If you're wondering why this video has my voice in it, the reason will be in the description down below. So what is a mid-season finale? If you don't know, it is every season the Arrowverse seasons take a break right in the middle, basically around episode 9, which is not really the middle, but it doesn't really matter, which is usually in December. The two seasons in the Arrowverse that do not have mid-season finales are Legends of Tomorrow Season 1, because it started in January and ended, I think, around May, so there was no break in between, and Constantine Season 1, because I don't know when it started or ended, but it only had like 11 episodes. The season wasn't even complete, so there was no break in between either. And for this year, the mid-season finales are technically Elseworlds episodes for Supergirl, The Flash, and Arrow, but I'm not including those in the list. Instead, the episode before the Elseworlds episodes, I will count those as the mid-season finale. So without further ado, let's go over all 19 mid-season finales ranked from worst to best.
Please raise a glass to true love.
Oliver and Felicity. We got a problem. There's a witness who is willing to testify that you are a Green Arrow. Who? Someone on the team.
It's a betrayal. It can literally be any one of us.
Let's not get paranoid here.
Whatever issues we have, let's put it aside and get the job done. Where the hell is everybody?
The pros of this episode are there are some pretty good moments between Quentin and Laurel, as well as between Quentin and Oliver, and at the time, the criminal cabal forming was a pretty cool thing to see, but also the cons are that the first 10 minutes of the episode are completely unwatchable. This is an episode that I completely skimmed through the first 10 minutes because it was so cringy. Obviously, I'm talking about the Olicity wedding, and also the premise of the episode, while not bad, was executed very poorly, with Oliver feeling like kind of an asshole to the new recruits, and the new recruits not really acting like themselves. It's just a very, very bad episode. I would give this episode a 5 out of 10.
I can dream the future.
Nia might be able to lead a Sage in Liberty.
I think I need your help.
What could go wrong?
Brandy?
Hey, girl.
Oh!
You have nothing to worry about.
The pros of this episode is that, as usual, Brainy is really funny. Like in this episode in particular, he's a really funny character. And at the end, there's the Elseworlds tease, which, even though it was an Arrow and the Flash of the same week, I associate it with this episode the most because this was the first episode to show it. While the cons of the episode is this episode has one of if not the most uninteresting superhero origin stories for Dreamer, as well as Kara being asked to reveal her identity does not make any sense whatsoever for the continuity of the show. I would give this episode a 5.8 out of 10.
What was the urgent that you had to rush to Star City?
Aliens.
Have you lost your mind?
I'm not gonna call you Supergirl. Stupid.
How did you get the name Heatwave?
I like to light things on fire.
None of us are gonna be alive for long.
Oh, man.
Heroes vs. Aliens, the 4-night crossover event starts with Supergirl this Monday at 8, 7 Central on the CW.
The pros of this episode is that all the invasion teases throughout the episode, those were pretty cool, as well as the Lena being evil fake out. I did like that. The cons are Cyborg Superman was completely and utterly ridiculously terrible, and this episode, although had some cool invasion teases, this episode was so falsely marketed as the first episode of Invasion, while it basically had nothing to do with Invasion whatsoever. I would give this episode a 6 out of 10.
I will do whatever it takes.
My name is John Jones.
You're from Mars?
10 bombs in 10 toys, you will lose.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, you are Supergirl.
This episode actually has no pros whatsoever because I can't really remember much of what happened in the episode, which is one of the cons, which is that it's incredibly forgettable, as well as cringy writing and cringy acting, which are just general Supergirl Season 1 problems. The rating, I do remember I gave it around a 6 out of 10 when it first came out, like to myself, so I'll give it like a 6.2 out of 10.
Every now and then, humanity needs a reset, a do-over. That time has come.
We're at war. We're not gonna let the darkness win. You fight it with light.
The best way to teach someone a lesson isn't to punish them. As long as they're alive, you have something to fight for. That is what I am taking away from you.
The pros of this episode is that Damien Darhk was not half bad in this episode. He was genuinely menacing and threatening, maybe one of the only episodes of the season where he was, and Felicity obviously getting shot, which didn't really amount to anything after this, but at the time it was an incredible ending to the episode. The cons are general season 4 problems, like boring flashbacks, cringy writing and acting, terrible fight scenes, as well Oliver Queen doesn't know how to fight at all, and all he cares about is Felicity, and on top of that, the fact that Felicity and Oliver got engaged in the episode. I would give this episode a 7.5 out of 10.
Mr. Capone,
We'd like to offer our services.
Capone becomes the mayor?
You want to nail Capone and Rex's killer? We do this my way.
I'm here to set you straight.
The pros, Malcolm joining the Legion of Doom, as well as the fact that it was a pretty fun episode. The cons, it wasn't a very eventful episode, and Rip being revealed to not remember his past, as well as being this American director, that was just very uninteresting. I'll give the episode an 8 out of 10.
I know your fears. I know your weaknesses. I know you better than you know yourselves.
Savitar's still out there.
I'll be ready.
You will feel my wrath. The wrath of Savitar!
Please tell me you're seeing him.
Oh, I see him.
Pros, Savitar in general was very menacing and threatening in this episode, as well as the very interesting Savitar prophecies. Cons, Jay Garrick in the fight between the Savitar and Jay Garrick just looked like he didn't know what he was doing, and Savitar killing Iris was just bound to not work in the season because we knew they were not going to kill Iris. There was no way they were going to do that, so at the time it definitely ruined the rest of the season. I'll give the episode an 8.1 out of 10.
The citizens of Starling will see what the League of Assassins is capable of.
If you fight Ra's al Ghul, he'll kill you.
This is a duel with one of the most dangerous men that has ever walked the earth.
You've taken your last life.
Pros, Oliver versus Ra's al Ghul fight scene was really good, as well as the cliffhanger of Oliver being killed, although not really dealt well after this episode, was definitely a really great cliffhanger for this episode. Cons, Malcolm's plan in general was ridiculously stupid, and all the Felicity drama did drag down the episode. I would give this episode an 8.3 out of 10.
So what now?
I don't know.
You thinking about getting back out there?
Let's hope you're not rusty.
Just a bit of advice. Probably shouldn't be shooting people your first week out of prison.
It's a good tip.
Pros, Green Arrow is back after like 7 months of not being around. Also, the new Green Arrow reveal, some great fight scenes, and Oliver is no longer a vigilante, and that status quo for him joining the SCPD was pretty awesome. And cons, Felicity returned after a little while of not being around, and Oliver does not wear a hood and mask, which I don't really like. I'll give this episode an 8.5 out of 10.
Reality is fractured.
We need to find out what's wrong with this timeline and fix it.
Out of the way, sucker!
Things are not as they seem.
Pros, this episode was a lot of fun and very creative, and it was a great use of the time travel concept, which I don't think this show has used well in a very long time. Cons are that there at times it was pretty cringy, and also the character of Charlie, who was not bad in this episode, I still really don't like her because she feels very pointless. I'll give this episode a 9 out of 10.
Hello, Mr. Allen.
DeVoe, he took Barry.
Where's my son?
Has he gone missing?
He's not missing. He was taken.
I'm here for a reason. Why?
The lesson for today is simple. There are no happy endings.
If you hurt him, if you put a hand on it!
His body may be human.
DeVoe!
His brain
DeVoe!
is smarter than yours.
DeVoe!
Pros, the Thinker was great in this episode. There were some great twists, as well as the fact that my theory that the Thinker would frame Barry for murder came true, and the episode just in general looked really good. Cons, the side story with Caitlin and I forgot her name, Amina Black, that was a bad story, and DeVoe switching bodies definitely ruined a lot of the second half of season 4, specifically with the character of DeVoe. I'll give this episode a 9.2 out of 10.
There's something you should see.
It's here, the end of days. And in its wake, many cowards and killers and vile men will burn. And they will call it World Killer.
Huh?
And her rise will come at the fall of the righteous. And she will reign.
Take your best shot.
Pros, Rain was great in this episode, and the fight scene between Supergirl and Rain was easily the best fight scene in the history of Supergirl, minus the crossovers, and that's still true to this point, as well as exploring more of the Legion of Superheroes. Cons, very cheesy moments and subpar acting at times, just general Supergirl problems, and this episode felt like it didn't really come after Crisis on Earth X, because there was no mention of the crossover, and it felt like it just came directly after episode 7, which it didn't. I'll give this episode a 9.3 out of 10.
This vigilante's cycle of violence has escalated.
Something doesn't add up. We're dealing with a copycat.
Sagittarius. That's Latin for the archer.
I will kill one hostage every hour till he surrenders himself to my authority. Help me.
Pros, the Dark Archer was awesome, as well as his fight scene with the Hood was great. Also, his identity reveal handled incredibly well, and because this episode is a part of Season 1, the flashbacks were incredible. Cons, Thea was a little annoying in this episode. She was a little annoying for the most of the first half of Season 1, but that is a minor con. I will give this episode a 9.4 out of 10.
The three of us all want the same thing. To see the Flash dead.
What makes you think you can stop him this time?
3 against 1.
Ho, ho, ho.
What do you say, speed freak? You wanna roast chestnuts?
Time for on Christmas. Oh,
yeah. It's official, Santa hates us.
Pros, Weather Wizard and Trickster's plan was maybe the most comic booky thing I've ever heard out of this show. It felt like it was from a cartoon like Justice League or Justice League Unlimited or something like that, and I love that. In this episode, Weather Wizard, his powers and everything, his fight with the Flash was awesome. The Trickster, Mark Hamill, is always great on this show, and Wally shows up, which was awesome. And the cons, this episode definitely wasted Captain Cold, but I would give this episode a 9.5 out of 10.
There is a war coming, and history needs you to be ready.
We're dealing with some kind of blue god.
Is that Martin?
Our god hungers for battle!
We are not letting America go Viking.
Pros, this episode was one of the most fun episodes of Legends of Tomorrow. The montage where they kill Damien Dark was awesome and extremely creative. Mullis exploring his dimension and everything about him, very intriguing, and Constantine showing up was great as well. Cons, the Vikings were pretty boring villains, and the Puppet Stein scenes, I just didn't like those very much. I would give this episode a 9.7 out of 10.
Go back to the past to defeat Cicada in the future.
If I do this, I'm going back to some crazy time. Savitar, Dawn, Zoom.
And who is this?
I knew we shouldn't have done this.
Things just got a lot more complicated.
Pros, incredible tribute to the show. Zoom was awesome, Thawne was awesome, awesome references to the comics as well as to the show, and the reveal that Nora and Thawne are working together, although a little predictable in this actual episode, was a great reveal nonetheless. Cons, the fight with Cicada was very underwhelming, not very good, and it made just the entire episode up until that point feel pointless, and although Zoom was great, his screen time was incredibly limited, but I would give this episode a 9.8 out of 10. If you want to know why this score is not the same score I gave in the review, I will leave that in the comments down below.
The witnesses all he saw was a blur.
What did it look like?
Like a man that was looking for something.
I found him, Dad. I found
down the man who killed Mom.
Don't let him take any more.
Catch me. This man stabbed my mother through the heart.
This is my fight.
Pros, Reverse Flash was awesome in this episode. He also had a great identity reveal, as well as some awesome fight scenes with the Flash, making him feel really, really threatening. He also made the episode incredibly intense. The episode also had some great acting and emotional scenes. Cons, there was this one part where Firestorm showed up out of nowhere as this ex machina, which I didn't really like, but I still would give this episode a 10 out of 10.
We had a deal. I get to be there when you take him down.
I'm not going to kill him. I'm going to make him wish he was dead.
Prometheus knows who we all are.
He knows that I'm the Green Arrow.
I know everything. Who you love, who you trust, who you've hurt.
Evelyn, why?
This city needs to be saved from you.
Pros, Prometheus was incredible in this episode. His origin story being fleshed out was great. The flashbacks, which was basically Prometheus's motivation being shown to us, was handled incredibly well. The fight scenes were really, really good, like incredible. Billy, who was a character that I didn't really care about's death, was somehow emotional, and Laurel returning, who I thought was the actual Earth 1 Laurel at the time, was incredibly exciting. Honestly, I can't think of any cons for this specific episode. I will give this episode a 10 out of 10.
You can't fight what's coming. Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me.
You are not a hero. You're nothing.
I've been compromised.
This guy looks like he's not human. He's human. Well, then you can kill him.
It's time you joined me.
Pros, this episode gave us the Flash's origin story, and with the Flash being my favorite superhero at the time, I was just so incredibly excited. When he actually got hit by lightning, I remember vividly I got chills. Slade being revealed in this episode was awesome. Also, his monologue, minus the Olicity reference, was awesome. Tommy's cameo in this episode and that whole scene was maybe the best acting from the actor on the show. It was just an incredibly emotional, incredibly uplifting scene. The fight scene in this episode were great, and the flashbacks, because they're from season 2, are just top notch. The cons are the Olicity reference that I mentioned earlier from Slade, but that is such a minor reference and such a minor part of this episode. I will give this episode a 10 out of 10, as it is the best mid-season finale in Arrowverse history so far. But anyway, let me know your list in the comments down below, and if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.